What's up, guys? This is Nick from Arch City Poker, and in today's video, or vlog I should say, I'm going to be continuing the Let's Talk PLO series with today's topic covering overcommitment post-flop. So what I mean by this is I see a lot of players that are very novice PLO players. They don't understand stack-off ranges and how to play certain hands post-flop when there's a lot of money left behind. The concept of SPR, or stack to pot ratio, that applies in pot limit Omaha as it does in no limit. So for a lot of you guys that have watched my channel, you've read my articles, you've watched my videos and vlogs, I stress stack to pot ratio a lot. I think it's a good concept and tool to help you guys plan your hands out when you're not really sure or don't feel super comfortable with planning your hands out. I think it's a good first step. And in PLO, it definitely helps. And if you have a general idea of what types of hands to commit with certain SPRs, as a default, as a generality, I understand that you're going to have specific reads on a player or a player pool. Committing with a certain hand in a live full ring game could be a lot different than committing in an online six-handed game. So it's definitely going to be more generalities and by default. But I would like to discuss briefly the types of hands that I see players unsure of what to do with and the types of hands that they tend to overcommit with. So this will specifically be with pots that have a lot of money left behind, SPRs that are like 12 or higher, 13 or higher, essentially, I guess. Hands that I see players often unsure of how to play them or hands that they overcommit with will be stuff like bare, middle, and bottom set. I see players just say, well, I have a set, I just want to get it in. A lot of times, especially in live full ring games with a lot of money left behind, if you decide to stack off on the flop with middle set, you're often going to be looking at top set, which is crushing you, or a hand that has a lot of equity, like some kind of a wrap with a flush draw, or just a wrap itself, like a big nuttish wrap. Could be something like top pair plus the nut flush draw. There's just a lot of hands. The hands that you're essentially ahead of, they're going to have a lot of equity against you. And you're going to be absolutely smashed by top set. And it's just more likely that your opponent has top set when they're getting in that much money on the flop. So you have to just understand stack off ranges a little bit and really think to yourself, is my opponent really going to put this much money in with bottom set in the spot? Or is he really going to put this much money in with top and bottom pair? If you have an opponent that'll do that, then you can adjust and go ahead and stack off with middle set. But as a generality and as a default, if you don't know the player and you give them a little credit for knowing what they're doing in PLO, then you have to be careful with those types of hands. Other hands will be bare top two pair. I see players just get this in. That is doing pretty poorly against a lot of the hands that'll stack off with a lot of money left behind. Other stuff will be like 13 card wraps where you don't have the flush draw and it's a two-tone flop. That's not a hand that you should be committing with, because a lot of times your opponent will have either the same wrap or they'll have something like top two plus the nut flush draw, and they'll be doing very well against you. So you just want to be careful about overcommitting with these types of hands. When there's a lot of money left behind, you really are only going to want to consider stacking off with stuff like top set. And even then, you might want to have a redraw, but I think just having bare top set is fine because you can get it in against middle and bottom set. You want to have stuff like big nuttish draws, whether it's like nut flush draw plus a nut wrap. If you have a 13 to 16 card nut wrap on a rainbow flop, a rainbow unpaired flop, I should say, you want to push your equity because by the river, the turn and river will often bring in a full house, like a paired board or a flush, more often than not, like way more often than you guys would believe. I don't have the number in my mind, but you want to push your big nut wraps on rainbow flops as often as you can. Because in PLO, I stress this in all my PLO videos and vlogs, that this game is not about what you flop. It's not about pre-flop hands. It's not about what you flop. It's about how your hand plays out to the river. It's about the playability of your hand on board runouts. And you have to really keep that in mind when you're considering your level of commitment on the flop and how much money's left behind, what kind of hand you have. Do you block certain types of hands that your opponent can have? Those are things that we're starting to get a little bit more advanced, but those are some concepts that you guys can start adding into your thought process. But for the sake of this vlog, I don't want to get too much into that. You guys just need to understand that there are certain combos that you should just not automatically stack off with. Yes, if you have bottom set, let's say the board is something like, we'll say Jack 9-4 with, it's a two-tone board, say Jack 9-4 with two spades, and you have a set of fours and no redraw. Of course your hand is super vulnerable. But if you stack off on the flop, fearing your playability and fearing that you don't want to get drawn out on, your opponent is only getting it in with better sets and then like huge draws and hands that have a ton of equity against you. And you're going to be behind with bottom set if you get it in with a lot of money left behind. So I keep harping on it and I'm going to keep reiterating it, but just really think about how your hand does against your opponent's stack off range. Stop overplaying those types of hands and really think about how much money's left behind. Now, of course, if the SPR is a lot lower, if it's 3 or 4, then get it in there with these sets and punish, charge draws, get it in there against hands like two pair that will get it in that scenario, or hands like a pair plus an open ender. When these players are more willing to commit with lower SPRs, you got to be willing to commit a little bit thinner for value yourselves. So if you guys have any questions or comments, I will definitely clarify anything. I love talking about PLO, so just hit me up in the comment section, I guess. And until next time, this is Nick from Arch City Poker. Take care.